What's up, YouTube? It's Repeater Nick, and I am here to talk about some more football with you guys. Week 1 was pretty fucking crazy, I'm not gonna lie. There were a lot of great games, there were some good upsets. I wasn't very ambitious with my picks in Week 1, and I think from now on, I'm gonna try to call a couple more even if I'm wrong, because you can't get them right if you don't try to pick them, right? So, let's start off with the most recent game, Florida State and Ole Miss. That game was insane. I thought Ole Miss was going to run away with it in the second quarter, and then Francois, or whatever his name is, just gets nailed while throwing a touchdown, and from then on, that was a score right before the half that really just changed the whole tone of the game. Ole Miss just kind of lost everything they had going for them. So props to Florida State. They ended up winning something like 45 to 30 something. I don't remember. Moving on. For that game, you had the Longhorns and Irish game, Texas and Notre Dame. And that game was... I'm going to go out on a limb and say that might be an early candidate for Game of the Year, or maybe even Game of the last couple years. That's one of the best college football games I've ever seen. For those who don't know, my second favorite college football team is the Texas Longhorns, and the first game I ever became a fan of them, I guess, was, I think it was 2008. Against Oklahoma. It was the year Colt McCoy and Sam Bradford faced off. The Longhorns ended up winning 45-35. It was like number 5 Texas versus number 1 Oklahoma. I think game day was there. It was a huge deal. So that's why I became a Longhorn fan. I was just like, I loved Colt McCoy, and I just thought the burnt orange and white were just... I just loved it, and I've always hated Oklahoma, so they kind of went hand in hand there. We got some teams from the Big Ten. You got Ohio State did well, as they should have. They played Bowling Green. They dropped a 77 bomb on them, and the team up north, I will not name, won something like 60-3 or 63-3. So props to them, I guess. They beat, and so they should do that to them. Moving on, LSU and Wisconsin. That game was supposed to be good, and it was completely worth the hype. I was actually really impressed with Wisconsin's performance. They ended up pulling the upset. LSU, I mean, you can tell they have talent like they do every year, and you can tell that they they have a lot going for them, but the one thing that's been biting their ass the last few years is they do not have a quarterback who is competitive for being in such a quote-unquote tough division in college football, the SEC West. And I guess any division where you have to play a team like Alabama or Ohio State or Oklahoma, etc., that are just always on top every year of their conferences, it's tough. So LSU definitely has the talent. If they can find a quarterback, they might be able to turn this season around, but to lose to Wisconsin like that, I honestly thought Wisconsin should have lost by 2 touchdowns. But I'm happy they won, because I'm an Ohio State fan too, so I'm happy for the Big Ten that they got a win. That'll look good on Ohio State's resume when we go to Camp Randall in Week 5, I think it is. So I'm excited for that game now. That'll be a top 10 showdown if Wisconsin doesn't lose before then. And assuming we beat Oklahoma next week. What other big games were there? Oklahoma and Houston. I'm not surprised that Houston won. I'm just a little bit surprised how they won. They kind of destroyed Oklahoma. The scoreboard wouldn't really indicate it, but if you were watching the game, they completely dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage, and that's really all you can ask for to take down a top team like Oklahoma. And the trend continues. Oklahoma has a very high expectation going into a season, and then they blow a game that they probably shouldn't lose to. Last year, they lost to Texas, and Texas was not good, to be very frank. Last year, they were not good. So that's at least 2 years in a row, but I'm sure you can go back a few years in a row before that, and they were still losing games that they shouldn't. That's why Big Game Bob his nickname kind of fits him in the opposite way of when he first got to Oklahoma. So that sucks for them, but for me as a Longhorn fan, like I said, I'm enjoying their failures and their choking and whatever else it may be. Alabama and USC, I'm not even really going to talk about. I mean, I will for a quick second. Alabama is just way too good. I thought USC might have had the talent to hang this year, but you can tell they're still coming back from, I don't know, what are they, 2 years removed from their like last sanction year, or maybe it's only their first or something. They have their full scholarships, but their roster's still not up to speed. I still think it'll take them another 2 years probably to be back on top for SC's standards. That's all I can think of for that game. It was just a dominant blowout by Alabama. The Clemson and Auburn game was way better than I expected. I was honestly being a little biased and wanting Ohio State to move up in the poll, so I was rooting for Auburn in that game, even though I'm not known as an SEC fan. Man, that game was good. I don't know if that game says more about Auburn maybe being better this season, or if that says more about maybe Clemson just dropped the ball, or they just couldn't do anything. Deshaun Watson came in clutch when he needed to. I'd say he's up there in the contenders for the Heisman. I know there's another big game I'm forgetting. Oh, another thing I thought was pretty impressive is I thought Stanford was pretty solid in their opener. I don't think they completely destroyed Kansas State, but you could tell it was a dominant effort. I think Stanford's going to be, once again, pretty good. If not, they might win the Pac-12 this year. I think I'm going to try to stick with 2 of these a week, one picking games and kind of talking about what I think will happen in the bigger games, and also just reacting and kind of talking about some of the big ones or some of the ones for my teams or whatever. I guess I'll go ahead and drop like a top 5 every week too at the end of each week, just kind of a reactionary top 5 who I think are like the best teams until the college football playoff poll starts coming out, I think in the end of October. I guess number 1, I'll have to throw it up to Alabama just because they're defending champs, and they didn't, like I saw David Pollock say yesterday or today or something, he said they haven't done anything to lose the number 1 spot in his opinion, and I'm agreeing with that. Number 2, I would have to give it to Florida State right now. What they did to Ole Miss, the comeback and the adversity that they went through in that game was pretty impressive, so I'll give them the number 2 spot. Number 3, I'm gonna put Ohio State because anytime you score 77 points, I don't care who you're playing, like you're playing pretty well. So JT Barrett looks good now that he's running the show, he's calling the shots. No Cardale Jones to kind of be looking over your shoulder and stuff like that. So the Buckeyes looked good, and I'm excited to see what they do in the next couple weeks. They got a few tests coming up. Number 4, I'm gonna put Clemson. Yeah, they almost lost, but they also have a huge amount of talent. Their defense is so good, and Deshaun Watson's probably one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in college football. So Deshaun Watson's probably one of the best college quarterbacks out there, if not the best. Number 5, I'm going to give to Houston because that game against Oklahoma was almost like a dream. It was unreal. I've already touched on that, so yeah, it kind of speaks for itself. So I got Alabama, Florida State, Ohio State, Clemson, and Houston in my top 5 after week 1. And that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys in a day or 2 with my picks for week 2. YouTube, I will talk to you guys later. Peace.